found footage horror movie Milk and Cereal has received critical acclaim. Variety magazine listed it as the 8th best horror movie of 2024. He and his creative partner, Cooper Tomlinson, have a sketch comedy channel across all the platforms. It's called That's a Bad Idea, and it has millions of followers and hundreds of millions of views. Bloody Disgusting has called him the next big thing in horror, and The Guardian says he's a filmmaker to contend with for years to come. But most of all, my son. Welcome, actor, comedian, director, Curry Barker.
Hello, hello.
I wanted to have you on this podcast because of how important Key and Peele was to our lives. You know, it has a lot of adult content, but I thought it was important, even as a young kid, to expose you to that type of comedy. What are your thoughts about that when you look back on that?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I say this to everybody because I get asked quite a bit nowadays, what were your comedic inspirations? And I always say Key and Peele because it almost, I know there was a lot of sketch comedy shows that exist, but for me, it was the first time I'd ever seen anything like that. And I was like, wait, you can do that? You can just like make these small little concepts that are funny and go to the next thing. And it kind of became my dream job to like, because I always wanted to be an actor, but imagine being an actor, but one day you go to work and you're a cop, the next day you go to work and all their sketches, they do these crazy different roles every single time. That's like, what more can an actor ask for than a job like that? So, I mean, we used to watch Key and Peele at the house all the time. And I actually got a chance to meet Keegan Michael Key and at a screening one time, and I was scared, but I went up to him and I was like, "Hey, just so you know, you're the reason I'm funny." And he was like, "What?" And I was like, You're a huge inspiration of mine." And he was like, "Oh, thanks, man." He was super nice, but you could tell he was like, "Get away from me," you know. But he was super
That's
nice.
yeah, that's hilarious. Also,
Yeah.
too, with their sketches, it's the story. Like it's not just being funny, being silly. Like there's always a beginning, a middle, an end. There's a twist and the
Yeah.
production value.
Exactly. Yeah, that's kind of what I think maybe separates me and Cooper from other creators possibly on, TikTok and Instagram is that we took inspiration from that. We took inspiration from that. We didn't want to just shoot it on our phones like a lot of people do. We wanted to like make it look like a Key and Peele sketch, make it look like, a higher quality, maybe short film that's just like 1 minute long. And we
Mhm.
always try to incorporate some sort of twist. I mean, we're posting twice a week, so it's hard to like always have the greatest twist ever. But like, it'd be nice to maybe only post once a month where we could really make each skit just the absolute best. But
Right. And now you guys are killing it with the sponsored content, which some people they don't like that so much, but it's you got to pay the bills, and you guys are putting out commercials that don't seem like commercials.
yeah, like people that complain about it, I'm like, dude, like how do you expect us to keep making this stuff content for you each week, if you're not gonna let us get our bread from it.
Yeah,
It's like, come
right.
on, dude.
Well, today I'm covering Us, and I know that's a film that you've seen several times, and I asked you to watch it again just so it'd be fresh in your mind. So when you watched it again, what were your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it it's really interesting. Jordan Peele is such a like has such an interesting. I think he was one of the first people to really start to like him along with Ari Aster and a couple other filmmakers that I really look up to were like the first people to really start to like change the boundaries of what a horror movie could be.
Mm.
In the early 2000s, a horror movie was like just a lot of sexual stuff and like it was just, a popcorn movie that you could watch with your friends. It doesn't really have like a good story or anything. And then people like artists like Jordan Peele and Ari Aster started to like emerge from the grass, and like we started getting horror films that felt like more art and had a bigger like message behind it.
So what stood out watching it this time is maybe something you forgot before.
I did forget, which so I guess that's how long it's been since I've seen it. But it's that is a crazy twist, and it all makes sense the way she was acting when she was a little daughter, how she wouldn't talk to her parents, all that stuff. It's
Right.
like it all makes sense, but it's such a good twist is a twist that it doesn't feel like a cheap cop out by the end. It actually feels like it completely makes sense. You know, of course, if you were to replace your daughter with a tethered daughter, she's not going to talk. You can talk to therapists. You can try and figure out what's wrong with her. But she's from this like underground world. Eventually, she'll come out of her shell and become the woman that she ended up becoming. But like, yeah, it was really cool.
Back to Jordan Peele, now not as a comedian so much, but as a filmmaker, what sort of influence do you think he's had on you as a young filmmaker?
Definitely, as a screenwriter, I think he has had a lot of influence. My manager is always trying to tell me to simplify action lines and stuff like that. And Get Out is one of the screenplays I read to kind of look at like, well, how does Jordan Peele write his action lines, you know? And I'm curious to hear what you kind of discovered with us. But from what I saw with Get Out, he is the most simplistic. Like he's kind of like what you were saying about Jesse Eisenberg, just so like simple, you know?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you say you're interested to see how us is because it's a little different. He has some like really thick action lines in there. In fact, there's one that is 8 lines long and it's really 7 beats. So if he wanted, he could have broken that out into 7 different paragraphs, but he keeps it in one paragraph. But he also can easily turn it up, so when the action heats up is when it gets quicker.
How to use action and pacing to change the way I'm writing my action lines. I've always thought that's really cool and something that I've kind of discovered just through your videos and through like watching you like talk about what this person does and what that person does and seeing that there really isn't a right answer to how to write a script.
Right.
And I love it's so cool that writers use uh, their action lines to kind of show pacing for how the scene goes in their head, and I think it's something that I could get a lot better at. And me and Cooper are obviously writing a script right now together, and it's just something to think about.
From a cinematic standpoint, any scenes there that really stood out to you watching this last night?
Yeah, my favorite scene for me was the scene where the what do they call it? The tethered go to Elizabeth Moss character's family's house, and they're just having a great time on vacation, and then they all die in crazy ways, and that was kind of when I was like, oh crap, there's like. It was when he introduces like a big level of danger in the movie because you're actually seeing examples of like people being hurt by these
Mm-hmm.
things, you know.
Yeah, that it doesn't just apply to the Wilsons. Like, oh, this is a bigger thing that's going on.
Yeah,
Right.
it almost feels like if a zombie apocalypse movie had more of like a horror psychological twist to it.
Yeah. Makes me wonder what his next film's going to be. Another thing about that scene is in the screenplay, the house, the setting is described exactly like it is in the film, with the mezzanine going around the top and the lighting and the furniture. And so it makes me wonder, did did he write that and then they went out and scouted and found the exact place that looked like what he wrote, or did he rewrite it once they found the place that they actually liked? What do you think's most likely as a
He
filmmaker?
could have built this. He could have built it from
Yeah,
the ground up.
for $20 million, they may have just built the house. You're right.
Well, I mean, like in Hereditary, like that movie was like 15 or 10 million if I'm not mistaken, and that whole house is a soundstage. So that it's not out of the question at all that he could have completely. I used to work on This Is Us, and as you know, and I would just watch them. I would go to work and I would be like, this house wasn't there yesterday. What the heck? Like they just build stuff. It's crazy. But at the
Right.
same time, I could totally see a situation where he found the perfect house and was like, okay, now I got to kind of like make it fit, you know?
Right. That makes a lot of
So,
sense. I didn't even think of that. I mean, that is the most likely
yeah,
scenario.
yeah.
I was just thinking about my most recent experience with you going around and scouting and seeing the different locations.
100%. Well,
But
that was for
your budget
nobody.
wasn't quite 20 million, not
Yeah,
yet.
yeah, yeah.
Well, it was a thrill of a lifetime to be on set for your most recent movie, which is now in post production. I know you can't tell us much about it, but what can you say?
Yeah, we haven't announced it yet, so it's not on IMDb. It's not really, there's you've read the script, you know everything about it. But it's in post production right now. It's we I've already handed off a complete cut to our financiers. The movie's called Obsession. It's I'm very very excited about it. I haven't even released a log line to anybody,
Yeah.
so nobody even knows. But I'm always just I always just want to beat myself. If it's better than Milk and Cereal, if it's better than my last project, then I'll be happy with that.
All right, Corey. Well, thanks for coming on with me. I thought this would be a great one since how important Jordan Peele has been in our lives. And I'm so proud of you and I love you. And we got to do it again.
Yeah, 100%. Let's do it again.
All right. Talk to you soon.
All right, love you too, Dad.